Oh, wait. Boom. There.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Um,
Much better.
Welcome everyone to Religion Zero, number 29. Does
29.
God care about politics? Oh no, you got you got your soundboard going. So
That was a
we're
lucky
still
guess.
we're we're still gonna see what's going on with our friend CONK if he's coming on. He's we don't know what's going on. So uh
Indeed.
he's got the link and everything. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is a show where we talk about anything with religion and such. Uh and of course within the theme of what everyone else is talking about and thinking about. Um kind of on topic but off topic, I guess. Like, not going to get in too much with the election itself. That's going to be more for the 10K Run podcast for Brooke and myself on our show. But wanted to kind of talk about to see, like, because I'm seeing a lot of this. Surprisingly, not as much as usual. Maybe it's because I don't have as many friends that are Christians or
I think
going on about
that's
it as
fair.
much,
Yeah.
or at least maybe Facebook's algorithm doesn't tailor to let me see that as much. But
Mm.
people that are kind of using the election, using politics in general in a religious context. And then now it's not to say that, can Christians have a political view or anything, but more so kind of using Jesus, using God, using scripture to justify all sorts of positions.
Yes.
When in
Yes.
reality, Jesus was fairly apolitical, I'd say. I mean, depends on how you
That
look
would be
at
the
it, but
that would be the word. He is apolitical. At least to the events that were taking place at the time, sure.
yeah, and it was very much kind of follow the rules that
Well,
you're
before we get into that, what? Just give us a little update about where you've been the week and stuff like
where
that.
I've been.
Yeah, because I know you've had a bit of an adventure. So let's do a quick catch up, and we may not go very long. If our friend Corey doesn't jump on, we may kind of cut it short. We did try to give him a shout out and call him. He didn't answer, so we hope everything's okay. Everything is probably fine. He's probably just sleeping late. But yeah, Amos, what's been interesting with you this week?
Absolutely nothing. No. So actually, I mean, in line with the theme, I was some people know that I was working with the Joe Jorgensen, Spike Cohen presidential campaign, and as a result, like I was so I was invited to come out to their election night party in Dallas. So on Sunday night, it's pretty much after we did everything, I kind of took some time, got ready, and then I head out, and then I came back last night. Um, oh, you cut off your camera. And then so I was out there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then of course Friday. Um, Friday I started to make my way back until I got home last night, Saturday night. Was out there with the campaign on Tuesday night, partying. Yeah, we got someone in the chat here voting for Joe Jorgensen is a sin. Yeah. That's what I'm being told.
That's not probably true. We could probably touch on that topic of the third party vote in the conversation and why I don't think that's a fair assessment. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. You vote for whoever you want. Basically, we'll kind of sum up the ideas that I'm trying to talk about in the show. But yeah, went out to that thing. That was pretty much the focus of the whole thing. I was gonna try to meet up with some other people, but not a lot of didn't get the opportunity to do so. So then I came back last night. So, and of course, I did have a little bit of this bourbon. I had a
Backbone bourbon. That's not like
bourbon.
That's not from Brokeback Mountain, right? That's
no,
like, no relation, right? Okay.
No. So this is yeah, it's a straight bourbon whiskey, 119 proof.
Nice.
Someone told me that's cask strength, so 60% alcohol.
It's half. You usually half it.
Right, 59.5 is, but cask strength, basically it's straight out of the barrel. hasn't been diluted or anything. It's just strong. I took one sip of this, maybe a little bit more of a swig, and I had to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's some good stuff, man. In fact, for our show, the events that have, the U.S. election and stuff, I might pull out my 80 proof rum and just get completely fucking.
Just got a
hammered.
message from Corey. He'll be here in a couple minutes. So,
all right, no problem.
So yeah, got that. That was it's a specially signed by Joe Jorgensen.
That's pretty cool.
So, and because it's so strong, I could save it like someone told me like 100 years. So we'll see.
It's
a special bit.
Do you want to like just quickly kind of give, where were you for the election and a little bit of your thoughts about where you are? Well, maybe let me do my recap and then we could get into it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So this week has been boring as fuck because Wales is still in lockdown. England has just gone into lockdown. We have the most cases in Wales in this area. Don't ask me to pronounce the Welsh name of this place. I think it's like Rhondda Clynontoff or something. Probably butchered it. So we may not actually come out from lockdown tomorrow. The rest of Wales is on this fire break, which ends tomorrow. I hope at least the gyms open back up because I'm just losing my shit just staying at home all this time. And hopefully tomorrow things will kind of ease up. But because our cases keep spiking, which I'm kind of grateful for because the more people that get this thing, the faster, they get immunities and we're going to get past all this nonsense. We may not be completely out of the woods out here. So I'm going a bit stir crazy at this point. I'm really looking forward to getting out. I've been taking walks and going. I mean, there is a beautiful area, but yeah, it's time for this bullshit to stop, man. I don't think it's good for people's mental health.
Yeah. Oh man, sorry, I'm still seeing all these posts about people. Anyways,
yeah, our show is going to be lit.
Yeah, our show is going to be. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of how the week is going. I mean, here. Apparently I've heard there's protests in the streets, but I haven't heard much more.
Yeah, in Portland. In Portland, there's fucking Portland.
There's some protests I know from Trump supporters at some polling places.
No. There's a difference between what's a protest and people gathering outside the polling places that the media is saying are protesting. And when you actually
videos of protesting.
No, they're not protesting. They're praying. Sorry, they're praying at the building, and they're saying "We love you" and Trump, and so that's not protesting.
I mean,
that's
gathering
just,
the understanding of the word protesting has definitely been skewed. I'll say that. Like people equate protesting with rioting, or sort of loud, but it is. No,
I mean you have to have a cause that you're against. They're not. They're just there.
Well, yeah, they're wanting the
results.
election. Yeah, and then there's some of them I've seen where they're trying to demand the polling places to, counting and because there's definitely.
No. Those incidents we can get to what's going on in Michigan and Pennsylvania and stuff like that. That's something different.
Right. But I'm just saying is I've seen videos of Trump supporters outside of polling places gathering, yelling about certain things, saying, there's signs and stuff. They're wearing the hats, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's
protesting.
I was referring to
the proper way of protesting, not the yell, not the throwing stuff, not the violence, like proper protesting. So
that's well, we'll get into that in our show.
So I don't know what else is supposed to be going on. Well, let's see. Is he coming on yet?
Yeah, he's on his way. So just maybe give your thoughts on election night and the results so far.
Yeah. So I mean, watching it on election night, it was definitely interesting. Seeing how it played out, it was really, really close, and then we kind of hit a snag.
If you want to call it that,
basically, going into the night. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. that night.
Yeah.
and it was just like stuck. And then in the following days, we were realizing, oh, this is going to take a while.
Right.
There was a lot of states that could have gone one way, a lot of states that could have gone another way. They were just taking forever to count. I watched a bunch of videos of some TikTok videos making fun of the states that were taking forever. I mean, there was all the memes.
Yeah,
I mean,
the memes have been
about Nevada taking forever to count, about Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina, Georgia,
all these states taking forever.
Nevada,
and then,
Arizona. Yeah.
And then now that, some of these, I think even Fox went along with to project Biden to win. But now there's all this talk of other things are going to take place, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
They're going to try to look into a lot of that too. So it's, it's kind of a roller coaster. I mean, for me, having voted for third party, I'm kind of like, fine. I mean, fine is not the right word, but it's a different mindset for each one. If Trump wins, it's kind of like, oh, the same thing we've had in the last 4 years. It'll just be interesting how how do we continue into COVID, and then if it's Biden, then it's like, oh, then there's a whole new set of things to consider.
Right. So you're just kind of waiting it out, kind of ambivalent.
I'm kind of, taking the more as centrist kind of position, whereas some of the people I talk to who are more centrist actually are like, no, it's Biden. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it is, and if it is, fine. But there's all this stuff, and we have until January.
Yes, I think the 14th of January or something.
Yeah. So if the the Republicans and the Democrats are all going to go their own avenues to figure out whatever they need to figure out and pursue all the courses they need to pursue, fine. More fun for it is the political shit show that is America. It's just watching us do our thing. We everyone wants to, what was it, 30 some days to do a recount back in 2000. Because the media, interesting enough, the media jumped the gun and said Al Gore was president.
Yes, and Fox News called it for Bush.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, okay, well, that's interesting. And everyone, they took the time, and I'm seeing.
We don't need to get too much into it. You're doing our show now, so yeah. You're just the answer was you're ambivalent. It's kind of like whatever.
Yeah,
that's
kind of
how
ambivalent.
you feel.
Yeah. Everyone's blaming people like me for why Trump doesn't win.
No, I don't think so. I'm actually quite terrified about what has happened in the U.S. and I was watching it from election night, and as much as I don't really give a shit about the outcome because it doesn't really affect me. Trump got more votes than Obama did in his landslide election of 2008.
Right. Oh, here we go.
And then you're telling me what's
Morning.
going on, CONK?
Hello.
What's happening, man? We were missing you, bro.
Yeah, I'm alive now. I don't think I was in such a deep sleep. I don't think I was technically alive before. I think I've been born again.
It's a resurrection miracle.
Yeah, feels like it.
So we're getting into some other topics because we're kind of waiting until you get here.
Oh, good.
So first off, how was your week?
Yeah, I actually called in sick for most of my week, so I didn't have to work that much. So that's fun. But I've been doing nonstop crazy Airbnb stuff. So, I guess I called in sick to work.
Yeah,
I had a lot of
for the viewers, of course. During my trip, actually, I got to meet up with CONK. We had some lunch.
Good.
He introduced me.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Make sure it wasn't my brother, Bonk.
Yeah, Bonk. You took me to this nice place in Kansas City for I had biscuits and gravy, and that
And
was
I forced you to order biscuits and gravy.
yeah.
It's like it's the
There
best in the state.
There was a lot of peer pressure to eat biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, I wanted this. He goes, no, you can get that anywhere else. Get this. I'm like,
This is Kansas City food. You're in Kansas City.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we had some food, talked a bit, and then I went on my merry way. But yeah. So yeah. Anything else? I guess. So yeah, we're getting into talking about a bit about the election. I think we don't want to go because I don't want to go too much into the election itself, but more so the topic. Because the election talk and everything, we're like Brooke and I are going to have on our show. So,
yeah, and everyone else is and everyone's been hearing everything about the election for 5 days, 6 days now. That's the only news in town.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, do you have any thoughts on the topic itself? I mean, the topic being, does God care about politics? Like any initial thoughts you have on
this is going to be a very short show if that's really all we have to answer.
Well, no, I mean, exploring obviously like Romans 13, stuff like that. People,
definitely not as much as people do.
Okay,
is the trend I'm seeing. So,
right.
Yeah, and I don't know. To me, I think we talked a lot before, but I'm kind of on the anarchist side of. I don't think any form of government is legitimate. So, and I think there is some interesting biblical references for that, where I believe it's in 1 Samuel 8. That's when they desired a king, and God said, "That's a horrible idea." And they said, "We don't care if it's a horrible idea. We want a king." And God's like, "Okay, good luck." So I feel like God supports anarchy.
So, Brooke, what do you think then? Do you think God cares about just as the short answer of do you think God cares about politics?
Does he care? Yes, I think he does care. I don't think he cares about individual elections, but I think his plan for humanity is such that, he wants peace. He wants other things, as the kingdom of heaven expands on the earth, he would want things to kind of manifest that in a particular way. I don't believe he's forcing anything. And it does say that, God picks the leader of the country and stuff like that. And as much as I agree with CONK in terms of, there might be a certain government fashion that God is probably not fan of, he does still have, quote unquote, a kingdom. So he's apparently not entirely opposed to at least a theocracy where God is the king. And I who am I to say that wouldn't work? But I think at the end of the day, in terms of what we were discussing briefly before the show, people investing Jesus into the US elections, or even out here, we don't really have it a lot in Europe, but it's God is on our side kind of thing. I think that's when it gets a little too hairy for me, because usually it's a 50-50 shot either way, and people making these grand prophecies and stuff like that. They might be right. They might really be hearing the voice of God. Who knows? Whatever. But don't make that your life, guys. Do not put all of your eggs in this political basket, and don't try to hang it on God and be like, yeah, this is the stuff. I think that's when things get a little hairy.
Yeah. Trump is sent from God. Biden is sent from God. Well, I don't know if people say
it's
that.
It's people playing over praying over a football game. God is on our team.
That's exactly what it is. Do you guys remember that meme? Maybe we should pull it up, where it's like one kid's praying to Jesus, "I hope I win the spelling bee," and a different one's like, "Dear Krishnu, I hope I win the spelling bee." And then it shows Jesus and Krishnu fighting it out in heaven.
They're fighting it out
about which kid's gonna win the spelling bee.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what the heck?
Corey, I was explaining before about how we were getting into our quick perspective of where the election is in the U.S. Because we do have a lot of time on this thing. Yeah. Do you want to just kind of share where you're at? Because I was getting into it just as you showed up.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, in general, if your election lasts more than 72 hours, you should call a doctor.
I've been misreading that all these years.
But Yeah, I don't know. It's obviously fishy. It's a very weird circumstance. And like, honestly, I don't really see it either way. I think it's going to the courts now, right? There's already like lawsuits and court orders and stuff. And I mean, if there was no fraud or crazy stuff happening, then why is that a big deal? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know why people are freaking out and Trump's stealing the election. He's going to be a dictator. I'm like, okay. He thought something was fishy, send it to the court. That's what you do with fishy stuff. That's
yeah.
What's going on?
But if they go to the court and nothing comes of it and Biden still wins, what do you do?
So be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really care. I don't care really that either way of which way it goes. The one thing I do care about though is if the courts last longer than January and we have a Pelosi president, that's a problem.
That would be serious.
That's something I would pay attention to.
Did she get reelected?
Yes, she won her seat, but she may lose the Speaker of the House because there's a revolt in the Democratic Party, as well as they've hemorrhaged a hell of a lot of seats in the House that nobody expected. So, I mean, I'm kind of with you, Conk, in the sense I'm not particularly invested, terribly in the outcome. Yes, I'd probably prefer Trump over Biden. There's a lot that hangs on Trump, including the situations with China, Taiwan, Hong Kong.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, especially for the British, because we have to kind of take responsibility for Hong Kong at this point to a certain extent. So yeah, Trump on our side is huge, as well as Brexit. We need an American trade deal. But that aside, I sent you guys a message saying that I was very concerned with how the election was actually going, because this is the kind of thing you see in like dictatorships. This is the kind of thing that you see where suddenly the voting stops at night, and then the next day the incumbent dictator or whoever suddenly gets all the votes. Right? This is Russian level types of things that you're seeing here, and I'm concerned with the process. I don't give a shit about the outcome, and I agree with you. It is very fishy.
Yeah, I mean, you can count 60 to 70 million votes in 8 hours, but the 4 or 5 swing states that matter are the ones that are taking 4 days, 5 days, 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Florida, obviously Amos and I will get into this. Florida is the biggest like voter count because, it's a lot of seniors and stuff like that. And they got it done that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to get your opinion so everybody kind of knows how we feel, about it.
For sure.
We'll talk about our feelings.
How does that make you feel? Sit on this couch.
Now, not to put you too much on the spot, but did you vote, Conk?
I don't believe in voting. I will never register to vote. That's my time on Earth.
I actually kind of figured. I was like, either you voted or you didn't, and I thought it's probably leaning more towards you didn't. So,
if I had to endorse a candidate, it would probably be Adam Kokesh because
I don't know who that is. Who's that?
He's doing the fast
libertarian
anarchy
candidate.
He's fast anarchy, not the slow overtime.
Yeah, he literally wanted the entire U.S. to be reduced to city states. Day one.
Wow.
Yeah. He said dissolve the federal government in 4 years.
Wow.
So
sounds great.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love it in theory. It might take a little more than that, but I think that's actually where we're going. But anyway, that's another story.
So, all right. So God doesn't care about politics. See you everyone next week. No.
In our opinion, God doesn't care about politics. We could be completely wrong. Maybe he's really, he's out there stomping for Biden. Who fucking knows?
Right. So does anyone know about the whole Romans 13 thing I keep seeing floating around? I see every couple of years, it pops up and everyone wants to use the Romans 13 thing to say on one hand, God puts in the leaders, and then the other hand, oh no, God doesn't really care, and
yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of have to when I read. So Romans 13, should we just read it first? The important part,
right? The submission to government authorities. Yeah.
As you start hearing all the pages turning,
everybody swipe to Romans 13.
Yeah, I don't hear clicking. You want me to read it out?
All right.
Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, I just Googled up, and the first translation it gave me was NIV, so we're going with that.
Okay.
Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. There is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one authority? And then then do what is right and you will be commended. I think that's the main big chunk of it. It goes in more little details, but that's kind of the gist everyone talks about is the first 2 or 3 verses of Romans 13.
Yeah, I would agree. So how have you guys seen this being used in terms of what was the dichotomy, Amos, that people are saying about this?
So on one hand, you get your people that, I mean, mainly you see like people will say like, oh, God has sort of like, so for example, they think Trump is God's candidate, so they'll push that, and then they send in, when someone is in power, but then you throw Romans 13 at them, and they'll be like, well, like try throwing Romans 13 at Christians, or at least right wing Christians when Obama was in power,
right?
And they kind of don't really take it so easily. And then Trump comes into power, and then they're like, oh yeah, Romans 13 all the way, like
Yeah.
When they go to the Not My President crowd, they're like, yeah, Romans 13, because God put him in power, and then now we're facing the prospect of a Biden presidency, and they're like, oh yeah, God.
Yeah.
God.
I mean, to me, I think the first interesting thing is there's no way we can translate it and like interpret it as is, because that means all the apostles defying the government and dying for it means they were all wrong. They were doing a bad thing.
Or even the founding of the United States with the revolution against King George. I mean, people fight oppressors, right? Right now in China, the stream is probably going to get killed. But we know there's a lot of, not a lot of fandom for the CCP, let's put it that way. Would it not be in people's best interest, especially since it's cracking down on the church, to kind of fight that? So I don't think this is a blanket statement.
No, and also the book of Romans it was Paul writing to the Romans, right?
Yeah, is writing to Romans at that time.
And the Romans were fairly like a very, just in that sort of Greco-Roman type thinking, very rigid in terms of political structures, power, authorities, and such. So you got to consider also he's speaking in their language. When he speaks to not a lot of the other people in the other epistles, he's speaking to very much this, similar types of different types of thinking. But speaking to Romans, it had to be very much like rule of law, authority, and then because as you go down in Romans 13, starts talking about paying taxes and honoring people. The people who serve in power are servants of God and all this stuff. Things like, talking about different laws. Then it gets into the law and all this stuff. And this is, of course, a lot of the language just Romans would be receptive to.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to write in the language of like Ephesians or something. Just very much like talking about identity or identity in Christ, stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, to expound on that a little bit further, there is the opposite statement being made by James speaking to the Jews. And he's actually telling them that they should stir up some trouble. So if you read the book of James, and a lot of people take this thing out of context about, faith and works and stuff like that. There's a very specific work that James is talking about. And it has to do with the Roman Empire deity of the Caesars. So the Caesars, or the rulers of Rome, were worshipped as gods. And when you go to the market to buy food, there's an idol of the Caesar, and you burn a little offering, and you put the mark of the ash on your hand or on your face, and that shows that you paid your offering, and then you could go and you can buy your stuff in the market, right? This was called the agora. So James is saying, look, in the Roman Empire, you have to worship the Caesar. The Jews had an exemption The only people group in the entire empire, the Jews had an exemption, right? They were allowed to confess the Shema, which was, there is one God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. They're allowed to say there is only one God. Now this begets a problem for Jewish Christians because they should confess Christ. But what they're doing is instead, because they don't want to be persecuted by the Roman Empire, they're confessing the Shema. They're saying, well, there is only one God. And James is saying is like, you think this is like acceptable? You think this is good? You say there's only one God and you think this is good? Even the demons believe there's one God and that it doesn't help them. He's saying, no, confess Jesus as your God. And he's saying, look, join the rest of us in the persecution. This is kind of the context. That is the work that he's talking about. So James is clearly saying that they should stir up some trouble. And, in retrospect, it actually would have been very detrimental for them. They could have, as we know, early Christians were killed because of that. So it's not as easy as saying, yeah, just sit back, relax, and, just whatever the dictator says, submit to. No, there's a lot more nuance to that throughout the scriptures.
And I mean, that's also, to me, it also kind of reminds me of the way they interpret it for you when you're like in youth group or Sunday school, which means follow all the authorities unless they say something that's essential to Christianity is illegal.
Right.
Because that comes above the politics. And that's usually how they do it. And that's why you have all of those like civil disobediences where people pray at the pole at school. Did you ever have to do that, Amos?
I remember being invited to go participate in some of that, but I never really no. So I know about it though. That was a big movement. Was beginning like the first day of the school year, all the kids would go to the flagpole at the front of the school and pray. Yeah.
And that became a huge poop show for a while because people were talking about, we got to end school. We got to end prayer in schools. And then all the rednecks with the guns were like, no way. We're going to protest it by praying at school. And I thought that was very fun to watch from the sidelines.
I mean, maybe let's touch on that. What is your opinion on prayer in school?
Do whatever the hell you want. Do whatever.
Yeah,
I don't care what the school says. I don't care.
Yeah, school. Yeah, school's trying to control what students do in school. I've heard kids. I remember some kids thought they were real smart and started arguing like, well, if we have freedom of speech, why can't we swear in school? I was like, well, and I said, well, there's obviously there's that difference of, for the environment to be a certain way, like kids maintaining a certain type of civility within the school, but then they kind of think that encroaches upon then because that therefore you can't. It's weird. The right wing would come in and be like, well, of course my kids can't go swearing and mouthing off to their teachers, but.
Well, I don't know. I guess I had a cool school then. I guess I had.
Well, it depends. I mean, this is the thing is how do you is a school like this big old exemption upon of the Constitution? How do you accommodate? Because I don't remember having any Muslim kids in my school, so I kind of wonder how would they accommodate that.
We had Muslim students.
You literally have to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had Muslim students in our school in Trinidad.
And they would have to pray in the middle of the day?
No, I'm just saying, obviously you can't compare Trinidad to the US because we have a very different constitution. But we had school prayer in the morning at Queen's Royal College where I attended. And it was all generic. It was, not father, more like God, and they just use the generic term God and stuff like that. And we said the prayer every morning. I don't think anybody on Fridays would break up into religious instruction and whatever. It's kind of, you have to do that. You have to just allow people to do what they want to do in that respect.
But I mean, did you have the Muslim students doing their prayer 5 times a day?
I don't think we had anybody that devout where they were doing it 5 times a day.
Well, 5 times a day, I think it's 1 in the morning. There's at least 1 in the early morning and 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then there's those 3 that are kind of in during a regular day, like when
Yeah.
they work.
And those are in the pillars of Islam.
Right, the pillars of it. I mean, I had a couple of Muslim friends, and I don't remember seeing it. They weren't involved in that during the day. It would have been interesting if they insisted on it, what the school would have done.
Yeah.
But those are nuanced cases. We don't know.
Yeah, and I've seen. I mean, I never saw a problem with kids like at school lunch or something where they would. So I was in a Catholic town, and there were a handful of devout kids that would actually pray before having their lunch. But it would be very quick and kind of a private thing they do. It wasn't like some grandiose thing they would do. I remember, that was it. I mean, but then when it came to it, like the push for prayer in schools kind of turned into like, oh, now schools should lead prayer. It's like, no, that's different. Like
that's something different.
Yeah, because I've been to some events. So I went to this thing called it was through the what is it? The American Legion. It was an event through the American Legion, which is like a veterans organization, where they hold this special event it's like a summer camp for kids to go and learn about government and politics and such. And because it's run by the American Legion, being a private organization, they could hold prayer at the beginning of the day.
Right.
They would actually lead a prayer. It was very generic, but it was done. They weren't bound by the rules like how schools would do it. But yeah, I never really saw too much of I would only hear about the debate of prayer in school. I never really saw it, the battleground of it in school. Like we do the Pledge of Allegiance, which itself is kind of odd compared to many other countries. From what I've heard, many other countries don't have some sort of a thing they do like that.
I mean, we used to sing the national anthem, so it's
right. And the national anthem, I've seen that. I mean, that's
way too long. I don't got time for that. I can't sing a whole song.
But that's really
every day.
typical. Like you see that happen at private events, public events in general. Whereas the Pledge of Allegiance I've only ever seen it done in school.
Yeah, we don't have a Pledge of Allegiance in Trinidad or in the UK. But I mean, I have seen, there are places that do, dedication. It's all state brainwashing at the end of the day, right? So
yeah,
that's
what I was getting into. Is like they'll enforce all these things. Now it wasn't enforced or anything. So like there were kids. There were kids that
brainwashing.
There were kids that thought they were real edgy because they would say the Pledge of Allegiance and they would overtly drop out the under God part.
Ooh.
They're like, oh, I'm so edgy.
So much edge. So much edge. Don't hurt yourself on that edge.
Yeah, don't cut yourself. And I hear that and I'm kind of like, I mean, okay, fine. You do you, but like, or some people that would just not stand for it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, fine. Like
sorry, Terrence, we don't have a pledge to the flag in Trinidad and Tobago.
But speaking of that, though, I was going to say, do you guys remember in Bible school or Sunday school as well that you had to pledge allegiance to the American flag, the Christian flag, and the Bible? Did you guys ever have to learn those? Yes.
What?
I never. Well, that's the first time
I never had that.
Yeah, there's actually a pledge allegiance to the American flag, Christian flag, and the Bible. We had to do all 3 when I was in a private Christian school, and that was high school. They made us do it.
Oh no,
it was dumb. Not to mention, like there was like also one that's like, I think it's like Anawanas or something, which is just little kid Christian Boy Scouts. We had to do that, and we had to do all.
Oh no, I know Awana.
Yeah,
I did Awana when I was over in Taiwan. I don't remember any sort of pledge or anything. It was just a lot of like, I mean, it was just like it was Christian education extra stuff. Like you would do, there's like playing games, memorizing scriptures. I think one of the first ones I remember was like you had to memorize the order of all the books of the Bible.
Yeah. Did you ever get the badge for burning the heathen? No.
Do they still give that? Do they still give that out? I thought that went out in the 50s.
I was the first kid in my camp to burn a heathen and get a badge. Burn some Harry Potter books is just good.
So
Close enough.
So prayer in school, yeah, I think we pretty much agree. Like, do what you want.
I don't think. I mean, the whole point of the Second Amendment. What is that? Sorry, First Amendment and
Second Amendment.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Please express
the
that
Second
in your
Amendment.
middle school.
The situation in America has me thinking about the Second Amendment. But there is a problem with, because what they're basically saying, and I understand it, is because the teacher is basically working for a municipality or we're working for the state, they cannot have the prayer initiated by any member of staff and stuff like that. And okay, I could understand that argument. What it became was there's no prayer period, right? Nobody can pray, right? How does that statute of the Constitution prevent a rabbi or a Shinto priest or whoever coming to the school and saying a prayer? That's when I think it was definitely an oversight. And that was the nuance of it. They took that separation of church and state to say there should be no prayer on the school because it's all government grounds. That was the argument.
Yeah, it's like, then you need to enforce that where someone at a federal building having lunch can't pray before their meal.
Yeah, that was the kind of nonsense that was going on. That people, if they walk in with a cross, it was offensive. They were tearing down the 10 Commandment statues in, all over the courts and stuff. Like, you can't have any religious display at all, and that is the argument that they, I guess, the
City
more
Hall
progressives
can't have a nativity scene.
Yeah, you can't have any nativity scene, and I think that is when it's okay, fine, but you can't stop other people from having their expressions.
Right. So, yeah.
But when you said you can't bring it across, all I can think of is a little kid dragging one of those giant 8-foot crosses into school. What? I can't do this?
We knew the guy. We actually know the guy who carried the cross around the world.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How'd it go?
We met him at the conference that we did in Kansas City. In Wichita, Kansas.
Who is this?
That's significantly worse. Yeah, those are different.
Art.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Art Montgomery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting guy. Yeah, he's full of passion. That's about all we can say.
Yeah, so to answer Terrence's question, Terrence is asking, where has there been someone barred from privately praying in school? So nowadays there's not as much of that question.
Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore.
But back, I'd say
late 90s, early 2000s.
Late 90s into the early 2000s, there was definitely a lot of debate about like what is allowed, what is not allowed in schools. The prayer in school argument. It was kind of dying out when I was in school, so I graduated 2011. That was kind of the last I heard of anything. It was very like whatever about it. Like at that point, I was already seeing kids and school lunches and stuff. They pray, but just before my time, there were kids. There was a whole debate about it. Like, can people pray in school? Let's see here. I'm just looking at the chat here, but yeah, like. Now, I will say this. I did get to lead prayer before a football game a few times.
Did you win?
A couple of times. It was such a weird thing. I mean, this is back when you didn't really think about that as much, but I like my coach actually said to me, like, pray to win, and he was like, yeah, but what if God wants us to lose, to learn? I'm thinking, okay.
Well, you don't know until you try. If you lose, he wanted you to lose, right? The Calvinists would think.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just whichever team prayed harder.
Yeah. That's what they think, So bring out the virgin sacrifice.
Does Jesus create a clone of himself and wrestle himself? Like, what's going on here?
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
That's funny.
I see no other interpretation.
It's like a really complicated D&D game. Like, you get 2 character sheets of Jesus, and you're just rolling the dice to see.
That's funny.
But let's see here. Trying to bar.
I mean, I'm all for Satanists putting up, their statues and stuff like that. I think because I mean, Satanists don't believe in a god or a devil, right? So I mean, I don't know how many people actually know what Satanism is.
Yeah.
It's a humanist religion.
That it's that whole like
the Bimotep.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there somewhere where they've erected a satanic statue
somewhere? Yeah.
I have absolutely no problems with that.
For a week. Yeah.
I mean, there's I told Brooke about this, and I'll tell you too, CONK here. There's a statue up in Bloomington, Indiana, of Captain Catherine Janeway of Star Trek Voyager, the future birthplace. So it's like, you know what? This is where it gets into other things, like if you're gonna honor like one type of, there's a Stalin statue in one city.
Yeah, the big headstone of Marx is out here.
Really?
I mean, he was buried. I think he was buried in. Is he out here? I'm not sure if Marx is out here or not. But yeah, I mean, there's statues of Lenin around the world and other things like that. I don't give a shit about statues, guys. I really don't care. you want to do something to Ra and Hotep, or fucking do whatever you want, man. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Does God really care?
Yeah, at the end of the day, God is that statue, right? God holds everything together. He's not threatened by some voodoo doll, or even that is God. So of course he doesn't give a shit.
So God doesn't care about elections maybe in the way we think he does.
Yeah. I mean, I would clarify mine to say, like, I think God, and by saying this, a lot of people call you an infidel, but I think God cares about Trump as a person. I think God cares about Biden as a person, but I don't think he cares about the presidency. Because to me, a lot of government is really just an imaginary friend, right? You can't really weigh a government. What color is government?
You're going into the social it's a social construct that is useful to help us.
I wouldn't say useful.
Well, it's I mean, useful in the sense that if it's use. I'm not saying efficient. Like, there are constructs that are useful, and then there's constructs that are not useful because we don't use them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's a construct in that it's not real, right? Like, if you look at it from a literal perspective,
objective.
There's there's not you can't use your 5 senses to define USA government, right? That's all made up in our head on pieces of paper, and we all kind of hallucinate it together that it's real, right?
Yeah. By the way, useful just means if it has a practical application. Doesn't mean
I don't think it does.
Good or bad.
I would still debate that, but I don't think.
But it's something that we use, and it serves the needs that we have for the time being. It's not perfect by any means. I know that. So I've talked about this with people where it's like, there's constructs that are useful, and then there's constructs that just have no purpose other than to feel good. Like what is so. This is where we get in real trouble. What is so useful about, the whole idea of like gender as a social construct?
That's not useful.
Yeah. Like only one real practical use.
I mean, yeah, you can look at a microscope and see X and Y chromosomes, right?
Yeah. And apparently if you look deep enough, you can see the cross in the cell membranes.
Proof God exists. Checkmate, atheists.
Exactly. Okay, we talked about Romans 13. We talked about the election. So really, when it comes down to it, if Trump became president, or Biden became president, or anyone who will ever be president in the future, you think God probably doesn't care that much? Does he care at all? Does he have any concern with the issue, do you think?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think whatever's happen's gonna happen, right? It shouldn't really. I don't think it really should affect us on Christians and what we do day to day, right? One of the main reasons I'm not an extreme political activist is because it says, like we were talking about in Romans 13, like, don't actively try to upheaval it. It's kind of how I interpret it, right? Don't go on these big political reforms and trying to be zealots and assassinate bad politicians and all this other crazy stuff people want to do. We're not supposed to kidnap Michigan governors or anything like that. But I mean,
Indeed.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
We should steal the Declaration of
if I was never a
Independence,
Christian.
though.
So, yeah.
But should we steal the Declaration of Independence?
Ask Nicolas Cage.
First, you need Ben Franklin's glasses so you can read the secret message behind it.
You know, did God want Nicolas Cage's character to find the treasure? No.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, to answer your question, Amos, yes, I agree. I don't think God is like invested in the presidency of the United States, but I do think he does have a plan, you know, for the country, for everything. You know, obviously he's taken responsibility for the whole creation. So he's going to use whatever he has to accomplish his will and his goals upon the earth. And, you know, I'm a preterist. I believe, you know, all of the world systems are bowing to the authority of Christ. And, you know, we're going back to, you know, kingdom rule and whatever. So I do believe he's nudging things, but it's ultimately he puts people. I can't remember what the expression is, but God doesn't only know, you know, every choice that you're going to make. God also knows every choice you're going to make at any point in time, given any situation. So even the choices you don't make, he knows exactly if he were to pull you from this time and drop you 100 years and put you on a pirate ship and whatever, you know, he knows exactly what choices you'll make at that time. And I believe, and I mean, obviously you're asking me to know the mind of God. Like Terrence is asking in the chat, like, why doesn't God clear this up? You're asking me to know the mind of God. Nobody can answer these kinds of questions. But I believe that he puts us at, you know, the time we're born and all these different types of things and the circumstances around our life. We do have the free choice to make the choices that we have, but he puts us in a timeline, a country, and situations to make those free choices to accomplish what he wants for us, and ultimately for the countries and other things like that. I think that's kind of how he does it. But
that's just your thoughts.
That. Yeah, I can't prove that.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking about it even is like,
Red Crusader, my family were pirates, actually.
Yeah, I kind of look at it and think like, there's probably something to that, you know, the plan and all this, but that people kind of take the idea of the plan a little too far.
Yeah,
and they think like everything is part of the plan, and like there's no free will then. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Like it's just like, I mean, this is kind of like, I think I'll agree a bit with CONK, is kind of that indifference. Like when it comes to the certain level of it, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you know, if Trump wins, okay. If Biden wins, okay, you know, I just got to adjust accordingly, you know, be ready for whatever's going to happen. But also at the same time, I will still make decisions. Like I still voted Joe Jorgensen. I worked with their campaign. I still have the friends that I still making connections. I still want to like do more in that political sense, but maybe that's part of the plan. Like this is the thing, is like, I'll think about it like, yeah, I think God knows that I'm going to do these things, but I don't think he's like looking at it in a way of like, oh, like he's, you know, he's got the strings, so to speak. He's kind of controlling everything like a puppeteer of sorts. It's like, no, it's not like that.
No, I'm definitely not a Calvinist, and I don't think that he's controlling everything. Like, I mean, the whole purpose of creation, the whole purpose of why he created a realm of time. Like, okay, so in the beginning, God the Father, Son, and Spirit, chilling out, loving each other, first family, you know, it's all great in eternity and whatever. They decide to have kids, and they dream us up, and they didn't they didn't keep us in eternity. They created a realm of time where things can decay and change and all these other types of things. So, you know, again, I can't prove this. You're asking me to know the mind of God, but why would they do that? Why didn't they just have spiritual kids and, you know, we all stay in eternity and everything's happy? And I believe, and of course, again, I can't prove this, Because there are aspects to God that you will not understand fully and reveal without corruption. That is to say, God cannot show himself to be a healer if nobody is sick, right? He can't show himself to be a restorer if nothing erodes, right? He can't show himself to be, all of the redeeming factors, a redeemer, if there's nothing that's redeemable, right?
He can't
not
really be the
redeemable.
light of the world if there was no darkness to begin with.
Right. So he has to. So he created a realm of temporary time. He put us in it. I believe he rigged the fall, whatever the fall was, because he needed us to have
God rigged
a
an
realm.
Election.
Yeah, I think he did. I think if you read the election, the Genesis narrative, I'm not saying it's true. If you read the Genesis, it was a setup. It was clearly a setup. He needed a corrupted creation in order to show himself to be a redeemer. Obviously, you can't prove this. This is just my theory. But that means the purpose of this life, the ultimate purpose of this life, right? Apart from all of the restoration of all things and everything else, is so that we experience God in this temporary realm and we get to see those sides of him that we would not see in an eternal realm. And when we return to the eternal realm, we now have the best possible picture of God. Like we truly know him inside and out. So he gives us the best of both worlds. I believe that's the purpose. I could be wrong. But that's why we have corruption. That's why he doesn't want everything going perfect, because he can't show himself strong. He can't be a healer. He can't do all these other things if, everybody was just an automaton robot doing what they want, doing what he wants.
So what you're saying is the snake in the Garden of Eden brought in some extra ballots in the middle of the night saying, eat the apple vote.
At 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will have that discussion on the show, man. CONK, if you're around, man. You should probably join us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can talk about it a lot. I was very heavily into it, and then I had to watch some more Adam Kokesh and Larkin Rose videos to remind me that this doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, I'll have to give you some of my thoughts on Adam Kokesh off air. So,
Yeah.
But do we want to open up for questions for people to come on?
Screw them. No.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, if you want.
Wow. So everyone will just drop the link in the chat there. If you guys want to join us, talk about your thoughts on, really, does God give a shit about anything, really? I mean, politics is one thing. It's the thing that we're all kind of identifying with at the moment. But really, when it comes on, I think, CONK and I we had a conversation at lunch talking about what God cares about.
Yeah.
And it got really just convoluted, I guess, in a way.
Because my answer is literally everything, because I don't know where the line is where God would care about something and not care about something in the world. So
yeah, we talked about if I won something, would God care? And I told him, I said, okay, maybe he doesn't care in the grand scheme, oh my gosh, you won, this is part of the plan. But he would probably care, he would enjoy the joy that I'm having of winning with me. Because he has to be, I think he has to be relatable. He relates to us. Doesn't mean necessarily agrees with everything we do, but he relates with us. So if we're having just an innocent little good time, or when we win something, and we're when people win the lottery, I know it's not, it's something more identifiable, but if someone wins the lottery and they go, thank God, is God really going to, is he going to take it seriously? Is God going to take it seriously and be like, oh yes, I totally did that for you? No. That's purely by chance. But then they win, they thank God, they start doing things to maybe honor God in their life more or something, maybe for a short time, we'll say. I don't know. Is he going to say is he going to deny that? Is he going to move away from, he's just yeah, hey, good for you. I would say he would say good for you. He's not going to, but he's not, maybe not going to be is he swayed by those emotions that you're having winning the lottery, so to speak?
Yeah. But aren't there a lot of bad things that also make you feel good? Would God care about those?
No, definitely. So yeah, but then that's where you get into people having genuine mental things going on. If someone is deriving pleasure from committing types of violence, yeah, God's not with you there. Because you're actually like to want to actually hurt someone, like it's been observed, like you're having problems in your head.
Yeah. That reminds me, though, we did kind of dodge the elephant and the donkey in the room. But
wow.
What about the? Have you guys noticed, especially like in the American church, but in America in general, like politics is a religion now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've noticed. Like, there's a lot of tribalism. Trump supporters think Democrats are infidels, and Democrats think Trump supporters are infidels. Right.
So you guys have heard the phrase like politics is downstream from culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where does religion in relation to culture? Is it upstream or downstream?
I think it's in its own stream, and sometimes people mix the waters.
Okay.
Because I mean, if you look at like the Orthodox Church, they actively get away, like try to leave both of those, right?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Because culture and because religion and politics, if they're downstream or they're even crossing, don't cross the streams. But if they're crossing the streams, I think there's that interaction between politics and religion where it's like, I made the comment like, why is it when I go into a church around election time, it seems no different from like a political campaign office? I walk into a church and I see voter guides.
I think that's a very American thing. You don't see.
I know. I mean, but American Christianity
is
kind of at the forefront when it comes to like defining how Christianity is kind of done. I mean, yes, there's
amongst evangelicals, sure, but that's not true outside of the U.S.
I know. I'm like we have, here we are. We have all the missionaries, the money, the everything. We definitely have.
That's very American centric, bro.
No,
First you get the money, then the power, then the women, then
the women.
I mean, am I wrong in the fact that the Christian church has the most money out of the rest of the church in the world?
The Christian church?
Honestly, I would say American Mormons have more money than evangelicals, but
that's possible.
Because they have mandatory tithing.
Yeah. The Catholics aren't far behind. I mean, in terms of actual wealth, I think the Catholics are pretty high up there because they have a lot of
here we go
artifacts and stuff like that.
It's Terrence.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, not too bad. I don't know if this is working. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Everybody, hello. Good Sunday morning to you. So I saw nobody else join, so I said I'm going to join. I'm going to ask my question. My question is, Brooke had said, and well, I know it's your opinions that we're sharing, right? So from your opinion, it sounds like if God doesn't care as much about politics, the way that people seem to express that he does or intimate that he does. So my question is basically, why doesn't he fix this? Why doesn't he solve this? If he's real, if he's around, if he has will, if he's specific, why, when they have millions of people around the world saying, God likes my candidate, let's kill these people, let's fight against these people, Trump is our guy, Biden, so why doesn't the God just fix this, man? Like, why doesn't he just sort this out?
I don't know.
What is there to fix?
Yeah, you're asking me to know the mind of God. And what you have to say is there no good that can come out from suffering? Is there absolutely no benefit that could come out, for suffering? This is my point, is that we don't know. We don't know why people are fighting these things out, and who's to say that that's not part of what he actually wants, that people fight it out and figure it out. Maybe they lose their faith as a result of it. Who knows? There's no way for me to answer that question to say I would know why God would do that.
But then doesn't that mean that all the suffering is his fault? Because if all the suffering, all the violence, all the...
Of course it is. Ultimately, God has taken responsibility for his creation. All suffering is it goes back to him, and he's taken. That's why he's restoring it according to the Christian tradition. He has taken full responsibility for everything. He's assumed the sin of Adam, which basically means he's taken responsibility for it all, and he's put it upon himself. So I completely agree that he's done that.
But hold on. So when in the Bible he talks about he repented of man, like that's his fault and so on. But when he's judging people, he's saying that you haven't done according to his will and so on. Certainly, he's not holding himself.
Where does he say that?
Well,
that's not scriptural.
No. Hold on. Let's take for example what CONK said, 1 Samuel, when God said that people didn't want to. it wasn't that they wanted a king. It wasn't that they didn't want a leader. God actually had a leader for them.
Correct.
It's just that they didn't want God's leader. And so God was upset because it wasn't so much that they wanted a leader, their own leader, it's what they didn't want his leader. And so my question is, so when those people did that, God allowed them to do it, but he's still saying it's wrong and it would cause problems.
Yes.
So my thing is the whole situation, the whole problem occurs because of the framework that God made. So all of this problem occurs because of him. So if you're saying yes, there may be some benefit to suffering, right? So my point is, if you're saying there may be some benefit to suffering. I'm saying there's obvious harm.
No. I didn't say there's a benefit to suffering. I'm saying there may be something that beneficial comes out from suffering. Right?
So
suffering is suffering, right?
Right. So there may be a benefit to suffering, but we know that there are outcomes which are harmful, which come from suffering. So we know the harm from suffering, but we can't necessarily say what the benefit is. So we can definitely say suffering bad. Suffering may be good, but definitely bad. But God is responsible for the situation. So at the end of the day, the God character has created a situation that we know is bad, but we are not sure could be good. Why then are we saying the God characters want to be esteemed as being good at all? If there was some measure of good, but he's clearly that's not his. It doesn't seem to be his.
I mean, you can't surmise that by any stretch, because again, okay, so a person, whatever, you get an old car rusted and whatever the case might be, and you restore the car, right? The rust and so forth that has done the damage to the car, the fact that it's been restored enhances the value of the restoration, and the worse the rust, the better the restoration, right? So you're asking me to say, okay, yeah, I fully accept that God has taken responsibility for creation. I fully accept that there's suffering and all of these things. And I believe God not only knows that, he partakes with us through it because we're in union with him. I cut my hand, God is feeling the pain with me. But at the same time, whether that is, I don't know what his ultimate plan is going to be. Like, what is the ultimate thing going to be? But we know it's going to be some kind of Eden form at some point. That's kind of the end point of this entire thing. I don't know the steps that's going to be there. Maybe the darkness, the evil, the suffering is necessary for us to appreciate the restored car. Like, to really understand what it is if you had no idea of the history behind it. Beyond that, you're asking me to know God's mind.
Sure, no, but what I'm saying is, if you're saying it could be, you keep saying it could be that suffering and God does this for a reason. You're saying it could be and you have ideas about that. But we all know, but we're not saying it could be that suffering bad as well. We know suffering is bad. So my point is, so if you're saying that, let's use an analogy with the car, the restoring of the car. There's a process where the car gets rusted and beaten up, right? And you're saying that because it's rusted and beaten up, when it gets restored, that brings back this excessive value to it. But first of all, if the car doesn't get destroyed to begin with and it starts out new, that value will always be maintained. So the process of destroying the car in order to restore it, is that truly necessary? And you're saying it could be. I'm saying maybe it could be. Maybe there's something positive. But
how else would you display?
But I'm saying that the negative things we know are negative. The rust is bad. The suffering is bad.
But as you're saying, you do not know the value of the restoration. So if it is the restoration, if the restoration is what's trying to be highlighted, like how good the restoration can be, if that is the purpose, if that is the goal, like if I had a restoring company and I wanted to show off my skill as a restorer, the point is to highlight that I would find a shit car and restore it, right? So the restoration of creation is showing God's ability to restore and redeem the fallen creation. But you can't do that without a complete, devastated creation.
Right, so that's the point I was making in the chat, is that it basically for God to have any real use in these situations, we have to break things so he could show how good of a restorer he is. But that means that God doesn't seem to, but then does God not care about not breaking things to begin with?
Of course he does.
But if he's the one responsible for breaking them, like you said, he takes
No. I did not say he's responsible for breaking things. Right? I'm saying he's taken responsibility for what we break.
Well, no, this is what I'm describing. So this is what I thought you were agreeing with, right? So if God created this universe the way it is, with death and suffering, and we're saying that in this brokenness, God is able to show how good of a restorer he is. It means that in order for God to show his purpose and what his actual goals are.
Okay, from the creation standpoint. Okay, sure.
His goals are not about maintaining that which is good and peaceful and that which is against harm and thriving. His goals are about, you could get destroyed, but the goal here is about letting destroyed things come back to new. But that means he doesn't really care about the actual suffering that gets us there, unless all he cares about is making himself look good to show that he's restoring. That sounds like what you're describing.
Again, there's no direct connection to that at all. You're assuming you would know the purposes and the reasoning behind why God does what he does. If you know that, bro, you're God, man. Come on.
Yeah, write a book.
There is no way to answer that, Terrence. You're asking me to know the mind of God.
I know, but I'm just highlighting the point. The point is that if the
I completely concede. Look, it is my speculation. At the end of the day, there's no, like I said, there is no way to assume what God is actually thinking, which is why this isn't a doctrinal issue at all. This is something the church has been fighting over for 2,000 years. So. Right. So I have no disagreement with that.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is not a statement of fact, or I'm not giving a theological fact. What I'm saying is, given the framework that you guys are talking about, the conclusion that we should become, at least what I'm describing is that, at least what you're saying is God's goals are about showing his restorative power. His goals are not about avoiding the harm.
No, it's both. It can be both.
It can't be if it is that he needs the broken car to show how good of a
No. Again, Terrence. If we're dealing with the creation, all right, let's deal with the creation. He created it perfectly. I believe he rigged the game, but ultimately we were the ones who fucked it up, right?
By design, because he could have made any other universe. But this is
I agree.
Can I put my 2 cents in?
Yeah, go ahead, Conk.
Yeah. So I feel like to me, the underlining pin here is the difference between freedom and security.
Yes.
Okay. So, Terrence, it sounds like your original example is, why doesn't God just come down and fix the American politics so people aren't mad and suffering and violent, right?
No, that wasn't the point. The point was that when Brooke was saying that, from his opinion, that God may not really care that much about politics in the way that people think. What I'm saying is clearly that's his opinion. He's saying that, and you guys are saying that's your opinion. There are like a billion other Christians out there, and their opinions vary as well from yours. And so what I'm saying is they also think from the same Bible that Trump is important, or Biden, or whoever their guy is, and what the Bible says in Romans 13 does apply to politics. I'm saying there are different people who hold to the same book, to the same set of beliefs in some way, and God is not clearing this up, not just politics, everything. So all of the division, I can lay at his feet as well, because all of them are appealing to him. They're saying he's real, and therefore if he's real, he should be able to sort this out. That's what I'm saying.
So if you're trying to remove suffering, that means you're trying to increase security at the end of the day, right? You're trying to protect people from suffering.
Yeah, and also increase well-being. So it's not just.
But that's the thing I'm asking is, how much security do you increase before it starts hurting your well-being? Should we all live in bubble suits?
I'm not sure what you mean by security. Why are you saying security? I'm saying well-being. Why is it that you're saying security? I'm not
well, how much is there such thing as too much security?
Much security?
Like to prevent the corruption.
We're never given a chance to break anything. Then we're never given a chance to learn anything. Then we're never given a chance to explore. He created us to have the free will to make mistakes.
Yeah, but are we making an equivocation here? Because that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying security. That's what I'm saying well-being. So when I talk about well-being, I'm talking about the conditions that help humans to thrive and to not suffer and to do better.
But again, that's
a security.
No. I want to address what I was saying. So there's nothing about not breaking things. I'm in favor of breaking things to find out how they work, and that's why they break in rules to see if those rules should be there to begin with. So that doesn't have anything to do with well-being. That doesn't affect my well-being to take a cup, break it, try to put it back together, figure out how it works.
But what if the cup cuts you when you break it?
If the cup cuts me, then that is a consequence of the exploration that I'm doing.
Exactly
what we're trying to say is the entire existence itself is us trying to figure out what is good and what is bad. So in the process, we will get hurt. We will break things. Things will decay. And as a result, God allows us to do that, but also shows us this is how you can restore it. Here's how, not only how we can restore things, but here's how he can restore things.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, he allows us to make the mistakes to then show how we can fix those mistakes.
True. So here's the difference in my mind. The difference is when I pick up a cup and I break it, that's my choice. Now, according to a lot of, I don't know if this is your theology you hold. So as a Christian, when I was a Christian, I would say, well, it's the same with God. God made rules, and the rules of reality are such that if you break the rules like sin, then you might get cut. That's the consequence of your actions. The difference is, though, God made those rules of the sin. The rules of me getting cut are the laws of matter and physics and and matter in motion, and just the fundamental laws of nature. If I
Right.
break those laws, if I take it upon myself to break those laws, that is the consequence that I incur upon myself.
Right.
Now, the laws about sin and about doing things that are wrong according to God, those laws are prescribed by God. These are not descriptive laws. Those are prescriptive laws, as opposed to just descriptive ideas about reality and me facing the consequences of those things. Because God prescribes moral law in the Christian worldview, at least, I don't know if that's what you hold, but since he does prescribe moral law, then the consequences of that framework directly tied to his framework. He makes that framework. So if I break the law, and as a consequence, he created that framework. Other than God, there's no framework that says if I sleep with somebody else's wife, I deserve some type of punishment, whatever it is that the Bible might say. That's different from me breaking a cup and cutting myself. That's breaking a descriptive law. I exist in that reality. Unless we are saying God's laws are descriptive, but then we'd have to find out how that is. I think you'll have a problem with that.
I mean that's a completely different point at the end of the day, and that's that's a whole other discussion about morality and other things like that. Look, to go back to your point is, I fully admit, I do not know the mind of God. And I fully believe, like, if something is seriously dangerous and stuff like that, I do believe he does try to put stops in place. But again, everybody is in a different relationship. Some people don't believe, some people are whatever. You can try to listen to your conscience, as we were having the discussion before. Everybody has a conscience, but you don't have to listen to your conscience. You could do whatever you want. So, I mean, you're asking the impossible. You're asking why God doesn't come and fix things. He's not, well, in the analogy, he's not a fixer, he's a restorer. And ultimately, yes, he's trying to prevent us. And again, even your human flourishing is your opinion. There's no objective reason why we should even make that kind of the standard. We don't know.
Well, we do. The reason why I choose that as a standard, I agree with you, that is a subjective standard I'm choosing, which is in line with humanism. The reason I've chosen that standard is because it seems to be, the reason why I think that is a justified standard to choose, although it is subjective, is that because most humans seem to want that for themselves anyway. The things that we call, like life is better than death, health is better than sickness, that sort of thing. Thriving is better than suffering. Generally, humans tend to want this in general anyway, and therefore that's why, as a subjective thing anyway, we see it's the best one to appeal to. Because when humans don't care about those things, we don't survive. And
but then we fall back into the same special pleading that you were doing before. So the psychopath, his best, expression of himself is to go out and start to kill a whole bunch of people. That's how he fulfills his wellness, right?
Right, and so, but it's not special pleading, because once we can agree that well-being is the objective standard, then when somebody counteracts or contravenes that, we can say, hey, how is this affecting well-being? How is the serial killer affecting well-being? How is
for who?
The stealing for society?
He's increasing his well-being.
Not for the individual. It's overall for society in general, and it filters down to the individual. If you think about it, if we aim towards well-being for all, then all should generally have well-being. Yeah, they'll have individual cases.
I don't disagree with the statement in premise, but again, it is a subjective standard. Maybe again, I didn't write the rules. Maybe human well-being is not the standard.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Until we can find an actual objective standard, for which there is none, because this is a construct, we have to go with what we actually do, and that's what we actually do. We look for well-being as society.
I agree.
But I don't think well-being and feeling good are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Because if we wanted maximum well-being, everybody would be in a tube in a cage getting happy drugs and food fed to them, and they never have to move, right? That's maximum well-being.
Maybe in a philosophical best possible world sense, that may be the case. But
do you want to live in that world where you lay down and have an IV of drugs?
Well, I think that's the difference with CONK is that for me and for most people, I think, who think like me, is that we recognize that the perfect or the best possible world is not attainable, but it should be the aim. Because if you aim towards the best possible world, you'll get the best outcome. You probably won't get the best possible world.
But then your version of the best possible world is contradicting to someone else's best possible world.
Exactly. Right. Who gets to decide the best possible world? The best you could do is like, oh, this is what's best for me, and I will try to impose my influence on society to the best that I can. But nobody has an idea of what the best possible world is, or even what human flourishing is. There is no objective standard in that.
No, and so, like I said, I agree that on a foundational level, the idea of well-being is going to be, philosophically subjective. But in practice, what I'm saying is it's not really that subjective. So, for example, when I ask you what's good and what's bad, if you're going to describe something other than well-being, then our discussion about morality is not the same. So, for example, if I ask you what is good. And if you say, well, good is what I know you won't say this, but somebody might say good is whatever God says. But then we are not talking about the same thing. When I say this is good and this is bad in a moral sense, we are generally talking about that which is good for the humans or the human beings group of them or the individual, the well-being of that particular person. We tend to agree on what that is. So that's why we can measure as an objective standard. But that's what I'm saying one last thing, and I'll get out here.
Yeah.
That's all I'm describing about nobody can agree on the objective standard. Nobody solves that problem. No one solves that problem. Right. So that's why I think that well-being is the better way to look at it, because we can at least agree that we want well-being for ourselves. Once we can agree on that, we have agreed on an objective standard for what the goals are for ourselves. And
okay, so have we agreed on that?
Generally, we want to live no more than die. Has everyone agreed that well-being is the objective standard? Well, on a basic level, like I said, if it is that we agree that we don't want to live and die, yes, we have in a general sense.
Or everybody's agreed to that?
I haven't.
So
I don't want the Wall-E world.
Do you want to live or do you want to die? Do you want to be well or do you want to be sick? Do you want to thrive or do you want to be poor? Which one do you prefer?
I want the choice for that every day.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Do you prefer for yourself? Well, which one do you prefer for yourself, Tom?
When's the last time you ate junk food, Terrence?
Today. Every time my wife
Good man.
Yeah, but you know that's going to hurt your long-term well-being.
Yeah, sure.
But you got that choice, right?
Right.
Because it tastes good.
If we're forcing everyone to do maximum well-being, nobody can eat anything but salads their whole life in a cage.
No. So then you've misinterpreted well-being. So well-being doesn't mean impose rules upon people that the general populace says.
How do you know that?
Die. Why are you eating food that makes you die?
Because this choice is the well-being. The choice is
is the well-being.
Finally.
In this case,
people choose different things.
That which not the outcome. Not the outcome is.
Should we have a choice to murder? Should we have a choice to murder?
We have a choice to murder. We all have a choice to murder. Yes.
Okay, so that choice is what makes it good, that I can rape, or is it the fact that I should not rape? That I live in a society that says you ought not to. Which is the part that makes it moral? The fact that I can or the fact that I shouldn't?
The fact that you don't.
No, that makes me moral. That makes me moral.
Yeah. Right. Isn't that what you asked? What makes me moral? Or maybe I misheard the question. Sorry.
I said what makes something moral. CONK said the choice. I agree. In this case, the choice, because you have the freedom to choose if you're going to eat well or not.
Right.
But choice can't be the benchmark, because then I should be able to choose to murder or choose to rape.
No. Terrence, stop. You're going all over the place. We're discussing an objective groundwork of which we are striving towards, and you pick the arbitrary analogy of human well-being. Now you've switched over to a source of morality, which is a different conversation, because you're saying, what makes something moral? Now that's a different conversation.
It's the same thing. Well-being.
Human well-being is not the same thing as morality. Right? You making a choice to go to the gym or not go to the gym for the betterment of your health is not a moral dilemma.
That's not what I mean by well-being.
And this is what I keep saying. Look, you've come up with a concept of human well-being. However you define it, hey, more power to you. I don't know what you're defining it as. And the fact, wait, Terrence, wait. You have defined human well-being as some kind of standard, and you said we've generally all agreed to it, and I've just said to you, no, we don't. So okay, in your very own life, you said you had junk food today. God bless you, right? I don't think that's doing, that's not good well-being for you. So I say that, me, right? I'm in disagreement with your definition of human flourishing, right? Because hey, if you die and stuff, I lose a friend, I don't want to have, suffering on me and all these different types of things based on your choices, right? So how have we, you can have that definition, but nobody else is necessarily agreeing with it, right?
I'm saying that's not actually the case.
So you're saying we all agree with it?
We all agree your junk food was good.
Well, I'm just saying, all I'm saying is, as long as people are trying to live and not die, as long as people are trying to maintain those freedoms for themselves, like CONK is saying, and that benefits their well-being, their overall living well-being, and yes, that is how we measure.
But you chose death food.
Huh?
Yeah.
You chose death food today. Food of death.
Yeah, but I have the choice to be able to decide for myself. Yeah, but I get to decide for myself.
So you did not act in your human flourishing framework by making that choice, right? So that choice was morally wrong.
No, let me clear it up. When I say well-being, we're talking about. So this is why I'm saying well-being.
Human flourishing.
Oh, fine, human flourishing. I'll use
Right,
that.
whatever. Yeah.
If you want to use that, this is why I'm saying it is well-being. You're saying those are two different things, and I'm saying this is why you're wrong. Because when we talk about morality, what we're talking about is going to be something along in those terms. If you say something is morally good or morally bad, ask yourself in what way what does that mean for something?
No,
good versus bad.
Terrence.
And it has to be that
Terrence, let's. No. You keep obfuscating these two things. So tell me what is objectively human flourishing. It's not whether it's morally right or wrong. You're going from human flourishing and equating that with morality. Let's stick with human flourishing. Give me something that is objectively human flourishing that everybody on the planet agrees to.
Right. So your terminology is a bit skewed. Let me explain why. The statement, show me something that is objectively.
Name it. Just name it. It's not. No. You've jumped to morality again. Stop. Wait. Hold on.
Isn't your question about morality? About what
it's no. You said the standard that we are all thriving towards, that we generally agree on, is human flourishing or human, whatever, right? Okay, fine. So give me something that objectively everybody, and you said we generally all agree to it. So give me something based on your definition of human flourishing, that everybody agrees to objectively.
It's bad to kill me, whoever me is.
We all agree to that?
Do the five of us agree on that? Yeah, four of us, sorry?
At this panel, I'm sure. But you're telling me that nobody could find a reason to kill you?
Right. So let me explain why you're going wrong with the terminology.
No. Wait. Tell her we are not off that point at all.
Okay.
There is no way in the world that everybody on the face of the planet is going to agree with that statement.
That we don't want someone to kill us.
No. You. So you're saying the objective standard that we all agree on is that we should not kill you, or somebody should not kill you.
No one should kill us, whoever us is. Like,
oh, you are again moving it to right. So here we go. Right. Are you saying everybody agrees to that? Hold on. Wait. So has everybody on the planet agreed that we should not kill other people?
Once you're not psycho or sociopath, yes.
Yes. So yes or no? Yes. So everybody agrees on the planet that we should not kill people.
No, I didn't say on the planet. I said within.
You said human flourishing is something that we generally all agree to. So everybody on the planet agrees to that we should not kill each other.
So if you let me explain what objective means, as opposed to impose what you think, then we can clear that up.
Are you saying the majority rule?
Sorry?
Are you saying the majority rule?
Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying.
That is what he's saying.
No, if I could say what I'm saying, objectively means agreed upon by various parties. So when it is that
no. Objectivity is whether there's no parties, it's still true.
No, that's absolute. That's absolute. You're confusing absolute and objective. When we're in a court
of course
of
it
law,
is.
Let me finish. When you're in a court of law and you agree on a law, if there are no people around and no law is written, there's no objective standard. It doesn't mean that it disappears. The law disappears.
Well, right, but the law is not objective. The law isn't objective.
Yes, it is, because the word objective means that we agree upon it. Absolute.
No, that's consensus, right? That is. Oh. All right, Terrence. All right.
So
cool,
was the
bro.
world flat 2,000 years ago? So
Sorry?
We had a consensus.
No, that's why objective is
2,000 years ago.
Yeah, everyone objective. Yes, everyone objectively agreed that it was flat. Objectively agreed.
Did that make the world flat?
No, it didn't, and I'm not saying it is. Just the same way that everyone seems to agree on moral issues like, say, abortion today. Does it mean it's right or wrong? No, it just means that's what people objectively agree to. That's the difference between what's objective and what's absolute. Objective requires our minds. It requires us as thinking agents to agree. Once we do that, we objectively agree. So once I said, if five of us sit down and said, do you want to get killed? Do you think people should kill you? Do you think I should kill you? No, that's bad. That's
consensus. Okay. No problem.
Yeah, it's literally consensus.
It's literally consensus.
If
okay,
you and 10
no problem.
animals are in a room, then it's
okay.
objectively okay to eat you.
How it works anyway. Show me where that's not how it works. Like laws, like your civil laws, like your societal norms.
If you want to get into the discussion about morality, sure, but you're obfuscating the 2 points, and you haven't defined any. Obviously, I don't know what you mean by human flourishing. There's no way that everybody could agree on your definition. It is not objective. It's not agreed upon. you are battling with the issue of where does morality come from, and I get it. As an atheist, it's a struggle and it's a complicated issue. And I'm wait, you went. Okay,
We do got to wrap it up though.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Terrence.
That's all.
See you later, bro.
All right.
What a nice way to end the show.
Definitely relevant to does God care about politics?
Yeah. This is the second time he's come around with the morality issue, so it's really bugging him at this point. He always goes back to that, and it's like, why?
Well, I mean, technically, the consensus of America right now is to go to war over politics, so that's the objective standard.
Hope you guys stay safe out there, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
So,
how about the Yankees, huh? Good season.
If everyone wants to, of course, continue with our discussion when it comes to at least the political side of things, Brooke and I will be talking a lot about that on our show, on 10K Run podcast, which will be on this channel, of course, in about 20 some minutes. But any final thoughts, guys?
Hey,
Brooke.
Stay safe out there, guys. That's kind of it.
Yep.
Any
final thoughts, CONK?
I don't know, man. Do we have a consensus of final thoughts here? That's the real question. So I know I'm objectively portraying the correct final thoughts. No, I'm good. I'm ready to drink my caffeine. I still haven't actually drank any today, so I'm just waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, with everything that's been going on with the political sphere, with the discussions and, this election and everything, it's like, the last thing we need is to throw God into the mix, because it turns into a shit show of everyone trying to figure out what does God really care about, instead of the reality of what is actually, beneficial, or what is actually going to help this country move forward. What really matters, while everyone is sitting there debating this, we have an entire pandemic going on and no one is really worried about that. They're just wanting to throw in their own narratives and stuff about politics. So anyways, who's taking up the show next week?
I think it's me, right?
Back to you.
The big man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Objectively big. Objectively.
Having met CONK in person, he's a big dude.
I'm a mammoth by most standards, but I'm also the smallest male in my family. So
Jesus.
I grew up with small man's complex. 6'3". Yeah.
Dang.
So we'll see. I mean, hopefully we could pick a topic that's not going to be as messy. So
we'll see. Time will tell.
Anyways, so of course, check everyone's links below. Subscribe to this channel as well as the other channels. Follow, check us out on Twitter and all that to make sure you're kept up to date on what shows will be on. This one was obviously a little bit last minute because I was pretty much on the road and I got back last night, and I came home, I ate some food, I drank a little of this bourbon, and I just went to sleep.
Good man.
In that order. Yeah.
I slept almost like 12 hours. It was pretty good. So,
I'm running on 3. It'll be fun.
So do check us out next week, of course, guys. And of course, check us out here in a few minutes on 10K Run Podcast. We will, of course, see everyone next week.
Take care, guys.